Man like Mark Sullivan, worry yourself. Stay tuned for the thrilling episode. Woo!
A positive mental attitude can clear away all obstacles which stand between you and your major purpose in life.
This is the Snowboard Project featuring Mark Sullivan and the Bead. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
Welcome to the Snowboard Project. I'm Mark Sullivan.
And I'm the Beav, and we are here at the Hot Water Inn with episode number 2 for you today.
Yeah, this is our first interview episode. So today I talked to Dave Seoane, legendary filmmaker.
Talk to me about Dave Seoane. Tell me about some of his contributions to filmmaking, obviously in the 90s, back when snowboard films were really picking up and kind of coming to the forefront of our sport.
Well, first and foremost, he was actually one of the first guys to make a transition from being a pro rider to being in the industry. So he was featured in Fall Line Films, early releases, and then started filming. And then he made this movie Roadkill, and that was kind of a breakout performance for Brian Iguchi. And also Terrier was in that, and Jamie Lynn, and then Sean Palmer, a number of other riders as well. But really, that was kind of a seminal movie as far as freestyle snowboarding is concerned. And then he went on to make one of the most famous movies in snowboard history, Subjekt Haakonsen, which is remembered as like kind of really Terrier's big movie.
One of the great films that we saw through the 90s for sure.
Yeah, and so he's the guy who made that. And so really, that's something that, a lot of people watched like every single day for years. People watched that movie. So that was a pretty important contribution to the sport. And I would say beyond that, he has just a world of experience working with pros. He talks about some of the stories behind the scenes, and he also talks about an upcoming project. So that's pretty interesting as well.
Now, Dave Seoane, not an everyday name that we hear in snowboarding, definitely had contribution. Why is it important for us to kind of pull these guys back in and say, this is important to hear these stories?
Well, it's like you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. And so if we're trying to go up and to the right, it's important to see the different stops on that path and learn some lessons from some of the people who've contributed over the years.
Sure. Now, since we are an advertising-free platform, tell me just a little bit more about that. What enables us to do this kind of thing?
Well, we rely on the support from the people who listen to the podcast. And so you can go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project and donate money. There's also tiered benefits. So you can win a piece of snowboard history. You can get access to content early, and we'll have some other benefits up there as well. So go to patreon.com/the Snowboard Project and support an independent voice in snowboarding media.
Now, let's say a beer company calls us up and says, like, hey, we'd like to throw you some money and a lot of beer. Cool.
No beer. Nope. Never.
No beer.
No beer. Whatever. No, you know what? I mean, the idea is that we're not going to be influenced by Burton or Never Summer, the North Face, any of these brands that typically throw their money around the industry to get their kind of agenda put forward, right? And so, it's like when you work in the media, you have advertisers, they spend money with you, and they can be very critical, especially with their dollars, if you're relying on them to support your project. And so, working with magazines, Snowboard Magazine, Snowboarder Magazine, that was always the case. You were always kind of looking for validation from the advertisers to make sure they thought what you were doing was okay.
Well, should we roll in and listen to Dave Seoane?
Yeah, let's check it out.
All right, episode 2 coming at you.
Dave Seoane.
Hey, what's up, guys? Beav here. Just wanted to let you know, full disclosure, it was Mark's first time recording for this interview, and so he had a little bit of trouble. He may not have pressed the record button for the first few minutes, so it's going to come in the middle.
Real talk.
And he didn't really know what a windsock was, so there's a little bit of wind noise. But I did the best I could in trying to clean up the audio. It might sound a little tinny, but the contents of the interview are really what matters. So, what's kind of our philosophy on this, Mark? Because I would say fix it. You would say.
I'd say, you got to own your mistakes and you got to fix your mistakes and learn from them. I'm going to improve as time goes on. And so pretty soon I'll be a proficient recorder and talker.
Anyway, it's still a great interview. We hope you enjoy it.
Dave Seoane.
Making these movies, led to a career path. So you make the 4 movies. The Western Front was kind of like a was that made on video? That wasn't 16, was it?
No,
Western Front?
that was all
Sorry to
video
go
camera.
back, but video camera.
Yeah.
So was it like the kind where you have it on the shoulder with like a little strap to like a cassette tape recorder type deal?
Huge camera, small strap. Video
Huge camera, small strap.
Yeah, on the shoulder.
On the shoulder.
And
Was that beta or VHS?
It was some type of beta, and I don't know if it was beta SP or it was basic beta. But I remember that because Jerry and Artie started showing up during these things called the Expression Session at Boreal, and Richard Scott Scooter
Richard,
who ran Boreal. He started putting on these expression sessions at Boreal.
What was an expression session?
It was just a night session, and everybody came there and just rode and jammed, and they had like raffles, and it was a kind of a gathering. It wasn't really a full structured contest, but I think you could win. But Jerry and Artie showed up with the camera, and their deal was like, oh, these guys, they need promotional videos to get sponsors and such. So they started making little pieces and like, yeah, it's $25 if you want a video, like, because that's what they did at Squaw.
Yeah.
They ski with people and then they sell the video. So they applied that.
So that was their
snowboarding.
training basically to get into snowboard
Yeah.
video making. They would like make tourist videos.
Yeah.
Like, here's your family skiing at Christmas.
Yeah. And so I think I bought one, and Sean Goulart. We were the only 2 that bought one. The other guys were just.
And that was the birth of the Sponsor Me video, right?
Yeah, that was the full Sponsor Me video.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can find that.
It's pretty
It's gotta be, I'm sure it's at my mom's house.
interesting. So how did the format come about? Because prior to that there was like This Is Snowboarding, and I forgot what the Burton one was called again, but they had this kind of like almost like the format changed with Western Front, where it was really about the tricks and not about, I remember This Is Snowboarding and Snow Shredders, it was like sections where it was like Kidwell time, and it was like that's where we would rewind it to and watch Kidwell hit the Tahoe City quarter pipe. But then there would be all these things where it was like, they went heli boarding or stuff that I couldn't relate to certainly at that point in time. But how did that format of just like a full video of tricks come about?
Well, there's 2 things to factor in with that. At Squaw, because it was very limited, we could only go on the lifts that were open.
Right.
And it was all spring snow. And then Jerry and Artie, they were really, really big fans of Greg Stump, and to even break that down, they really loved the film Blizzard of Oz, which was a travel adventure ski film. And that's what they wanted to do. So that's the first trip. It was like Jackson, and then we went to Chamonix.
Yeah.
It was no caliber like those, like what Blake and Scott Schmidt were doing.
Yeah.
It was no caliber of what they were doing, but we were still out there, like kind of, following the footsteps. So I think that Greg Stump had a big influence on Jerry and Artie, that they really respected him. And
Those guys friends, you think?
They met a couple times, but they weren't like daily friends, just because they,
Yeah,
this
cross country.
before social media and like,
Yeah.
you have to actually call on a phone that was connected to the wall. Some phones you had to. It's like, there's too many 9s in that number. I'll just call them later.
So when did you switch from look to Rossignol? Like, which movie were you making when? To put it in like time frame.
Well, I think that was kind of between Critical Condition and Riders in the Storm, and I was already doing like. I went up to Mount Hood and I was with Roach, and we took a road trip up there. And on the road trip, we were talking about like we should make a film, because I came up with an idea. It's like, well, now that we have film, what if we started shooting in November, just go where there's snow, and then we shot it, and then we came out with it in January. Like we just do a quick turnaround on it and get it out. That's like the newest, freshest stuff, because at the time, you know, all the butter tricks and everything was progressing so fast. Like we wanted to be, you know, at the forefront of it to show people what was going on instead of waiting a whole year when everybody else had the same thing. So that's what we were trying to do. And Jerry and Artie, they let me, you know, they're like, okay, you can do it. It's your project. I came up with the idea. You know, we'll get some money for you and everything. And that was the Roadkill.
That made Roadkill. Wow. You know, I don't know if it was a pleasure, but anyhow, I was like an aspiring pro rider. And so Mac Dog was actually staying in my house. I lived with like Nate Cole and Dale Rayberg and all those guys in Colorado and Summit County, like 11 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment style.
Classic.
But anyhow, Roadkill just came out. And so I was there with Mac Dog when he watched your movie for the first time. And I'm not sure if it was like rage or anger, but he was not happy with you. I can tell you that, you know, straight up. It's like he did not, and you know what, he immediately went to like from 8mm to 16mm film. I mean, the thing is, like, you had kind of, regardless of the tricks and the riders or whatever, you know, maybe you had stolen Jamie Lynn from him, I'm not sure, or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But the fact of the matter is you were on 16, he was in Super 8. And that was like a world of improvement, right? That's like HD versus non-HD.
And I was a snowboarder, not a filmmaker.
Right, and so how much can he hate on you? Because you were like literally one of the guys who was just trying to make his way through this, you know, into this.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But by the same token, I was watching that movie, and while he was getting mad, I was getting stoked.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, that's exactly the existence in snowboarding. I mean, I was all about road trips and going new places with my friends and pushing my limits and doing different things. And so that actually connected with me when it came out, you know, on that level where it was like, this is like snowboarding to me on a level. And so really that was kind of like a new format, I think, to that time anyway. And the fact that you had actually the early release, and actually, I don't know if people even do that now, like have like an early, I mean, actually with the internet, it just comes out all the time. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you know.
And it actually kind of like bombed as far as sales because, you know, we're relying on all these distributors back then for the videos. So they pre-sell and do everything like, you know.
They have a catalog, basically.
Yeah, they have a catalog and it's 6 months ahead of time. And so it was just like, well, we're already into like, you know, surf films, distributing surf films by January
Really?
1st.
So then how come every snowboarder knows that film today?
Well, I think it was out for like a long time, and then maybe like in the second year, people just kept pushing it. So maybe you know, when all the other films come out, they just kind of pepper that in, and that's where it probably. And it wasn't a lot of sales. It wasn't.
Like, what would be like a big movie?
God, I don't. It'd be interesting to find out what the numbers were, but I remember it'd be like, you know, maybe like 20,000 copies at like. I think that might even be a big number, actually.
Yeah.
So. And then it became so easy to be like record, you know, VHS. There's so many bootlegs, like when it went overseas and such, and
right.
Nobody ever really knew, like, well,
the gray market for Roadkill was intense.
Yeah, for Standard and for MacDog and FLF, for all those guys, I think that was the toughest part because you could never trust those guys because they'd send a master and all the box copies. Like this is the box it needs to come into.
Tell me a crazy story that happened during the making of Roadkill. Something that, like, I mean, I saw it from what you edited together, but obviously there's some things you can't, that make it to the cutting room floor, or some things, someone got kicked off, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, you know, towards the middle of it, you know, we ended up at Baker. That was awesome because it's snowing the whole time. And we were there, we filmed, and it was perfect. It was ideal. And it was like, okay, we're good. Like, everything's tracked out. It's not really snowing right now. We're going to Tahoe. And Ranco's like, okay, but I just want to ride in the morning, and then I'll come down, and then we'll jump in the car and go. And I was like, all right, that'll give us time to pack and everything. So so Gooch and I, you know, we pack, we get up, we're waiting, we're at, you know, the Mount Baker snowboard shop, we're just hanging out, and then, you know, all of a sudden it's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then by 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening,
mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, hey, have you guys seen Rankwit? And they're like, oh yeah, he's up at the bar. I'm like, are you really? He's at the bar. You know, and you couldn't call. We didn't have cell phones back then.
Right.
And so he finally came down about 7:30.
Was he underage at that time? I think he might have been even underage. About 21 maybe. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. That's superfluous, right?
But he finally came down, and we're like, Rankwit, what the fuck, man? Are you ready to go or not? We've been waiting all day for you here. And he's like, oh, I'm just gonna fly down to Tahoe and meet you guys. And I was like, what? I go, you know, we've been waiting for you here all day, Gooch and I. We could have been in Tahoe by now. He's like, yeah, I just figured I'd fly. And I was like, Raincoat, I don't normally hit people at all, but right now, you need to take one step back because it's out of my control that I'm going to hit you in the face right now. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? And I go, you just fucked up our whole day, like put us way behind. Like now we have to drive all night to get there. And I was just like, from that day on, I was like, Raincoat is a selfish fucking prick.
Right? So
I lost a lot of respect for him at that time.
Yeah.
And he never made up for it and be like, hey, I'm totally sorry. I was just thinking.
So he never apologized for that?
No, and I think he just wasn't really even aware of what he did. But it just like ingrained in my head. It's like, that's just so selfish. I'd never do that to anybody. It's just like.
I wouldn't do that either.
So what happened is Gooch and I were like, you ready, Gooch? And he's like, yeah, let's go. And we fucking hit the road. And we drove to Tahoe all night. We switched back and forth, driving.
Yeah.
We're coming up 80. The sun's coming up. It had just snowed probably like 5 or 6 feet. We didn't really sleep all night. And we're looking around. And we're like, should we go to Squaw? We're like, yeah, let's go to Squaw. And we went to Squaw and we rode. I'm trying to think if we filmed or if we just, I maybe tried to film a little bit, but mostly just rode.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, man, because we haven't slept. And Gooch is like, he's like, I really want to get to Big Bear. I'm like, yes, so do I. He's like, yeah, now. I'm like, you want to leave now? He's like, yeah. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. And we fucking drove all night again to Big Bear. I'm surprised we didn't die.
Yeah, and so there was no one there to pick rank with up at the airport, safe to say.
I didn't even ask. I don't even care.
Did more of his footage wind up on the cutting room floor because of that dick move?
No, I mean, it just, after, I don't think I ever filmed with him after that for anything.
Yeah.
So it just,
clipped.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of selfish. So there's stories like that, and what's another? Like Cardiel was doing all his like super butter tricks, and he's like in Colorado, and he like KO'd himself, and he's just laid out, and we're like, oh, Cardiel's passed out, and the ski patrol came, and Cardiel's coming too. And the ski patrol's like, I got to take him down the sled. He's knocked out. And Cardiel's like, no, I'm fine, man. I'm totally good. It's fine. And everyone's like, he does this all the time. He's fine.
They're like, oh, another red flag.
But the ski patrol's like, okay. Back then, now it would be such a liability and red tape and witnesses, the whole deal. But it was so loose back then.
Yeah, it was definitely different times. But that actually made you. That was the beginning of your transition from a rider who was in front of the camera to being the guy behind the camera and putting, not just filming, but actually putting together the other pieces of making a movie.
Yeah, that was the first time I had real responsibility, that I was in charge of all these guys and getting from point A to point B with, I have one more story to add to this.
Okay.
With those guys just partying their brains out.
Partying the whole night. Did you party with them, or were you the voice of reason?
I couldn't, because somebody had to drive and somebody had to get us from point A to B. I was just like, you guys suck.
And your wife's idea was to get a limousine where everyone could hang around in the back and face each other and drink beer, basically.
Yeah.
Did someone ride shotgun with you when you were driving, or everyone in the back shut up?
What was cool was the limo, the heater didn't work in the back seat. So up front, the catalytic converter was burning through the floorboards. There was always smoke. You had to always have the window open, but it was warm.
Okay.
So yeah, people were always riding up front because it was a warm spot. It was like a little constant little campfire
Oasis,
going on.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were. What was this? Hang on, go 2 steps back so I can remember exactly what I was gonna.
Okay, we were talking about how you made this transition to being the guy in front of the camera to the guy who actually puts not only the filming but the pieces together, the production of the whole video. Were you editing those videos? Did you edit Roadkill as well?
Jerry and Artie pretty much did the main editing, but I sat down with Jerry, and I was sitting down with Jerry in a lot of the other films too. Like him and I, it was good.
So you had a rapport basically, and you watched the footage with him. Like, that's a clip that we keep right there. That's the money shot right there.
That's the money shot, and yeah, there's enough of a landing in there that we can cut to that back then.
Okay, so how much of the landings in those early movies were kind of faked it, like with ass check, wheelie bar out?
Yeah, it was probably
quick edits.
I want to say probably 50% of them. That it was like land it,
2 frames,
and then cut to the other shot, and then after that was just loop out.
And I'll have to look back at those old movies, because now that I know that the quick edits were done for a reason.
Yeah, you need that filler time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not easy to gather a footage. Were you doing? So, I know MacDog had this idea. Like, I get 1 minute of actual usable footage out of 1 hour of 16. What was your ratio of like filming to using?
Oh God. Well, I think even more because Dogger was more technical with guys doing tricks. So
Yeah, totally technical.
and maybe like the stuff that like, well, with Jerry and Artie, like it would be a guy coming down, drop a cliff and a few turns. So
Yeah, that rolls out,
It
right?
got-
It's like
yeah,
10-second clips and not 3-second clips.
yeah, it gets used a lot. So their ratio is probably way higher for using.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so one other quick story on Roadkill is in the car, it was Gooch, Terrier, and Cardiel in the back seat. I'm in the passenger seat, and Bud Fawcett's driving. And we're coming down, what's this, is it Loveland that comes down into
Yeah.
Breckenridge?
Yep.
All right. We're coming down, and Bud looks at me, He's just driving, he looks at me, and he's like, yeah, the power steering isn't working, and the brakes aren't working too well. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, just downshift, And he's like, snowy road the whole time, and gets quiet in the car, and Bud's like, classic Bud, he's just looking at it as he's in charge, and he's going, he's got that crazy laugh, and we're like, oh man, we are gonna fucking die. We're gonna spin off the road
Everyone
with no
tried.
brakes.
Did you have belts in there? Seat belts?
Maybe there's one, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sketchy situation. That could have changed the future of snowboarding forever. That one moment, right?
But we were able to coast down and get to a gas station like 20 minutes before they were going to close, and they had the belt that we needed. And I was like, all right. And I had some tools in the car, and I get out, and I'm just like, okay, we got to fix the belt. So I'm just like underneath the car, inside the car, fixing the belt. I open the door to like grab something out of the car, and Gooch, he's like, hey, Dave, can you shut the door? It's kind of cold out there. And I just looked at Gooch, and I was like, are you fucking serious? I go, I am fucking... You guys are in here partying. I am out here fucking working my ass off, freezing my fucking fingertips off in here while you guys are in here partying. I was like, fuck you guys, and I slammed the door.
And by the way, you're like making them famous, not the other way around. You know what I mean?
I just slammed the door and was like, fuck, let's just get out of here because we've just been driving.
So, I mean,
for so
there
long.
were people who felt entitled through the history of snowboarding. Let's just get that out of the way.
But what was great is like they all kind of shuffled out of the car and they're like...
They owned it.
They were like, do you need a hand, Dave? And I laughed. I was like...
Too late.
Yeah, but it was they gave an effort towards it to try to fix it, and I was all, thanks guys, I appreciate that, but just it's fucking my fingertips are freezing and we're almost done here. Let's just get out of here. And it was the fact that they came out and made an effort was cool.
Versus the prior story, right?
Yeah, and Bud has those photos. It's like they're in the back of the limousine. There's balloons.
Of course. Why not?
They've
Or
got
wouldn't there be?
They've got all their like upper snowboard gear on all their jackets, and because it's so cold, it's pretty funny.
Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.
So let's fast forward now from Roadkill, because I think that was a pretty influential movie. But then I think you went on to make what's arguably one of the most impactful movies, or people like hold near and dear to their heart, Subjekt Haakonsen, right?
Yeah.
That was your movie. Tell me a little bit about how that came about, first of all.
Well, that was okay. So I met Richard Wolcott from Volcom. I met those guys when they came up to Mount Hood, and all they had was stickers and maybe a few T-shirts. And I was like, wow, that Volcom thing, they have stickers everywhere. What's their deal? And then it wasn't until like a little bit. That was in the summer, and then later on that summer, I was went with Steve Graham to ride motorcycles in the desert with Damien, the whole deal. And I was with...
Was that Krusty Demons time?
That was maybe before Krusty Demons, and
Okay.
Or maybe around the same time with Dane and all those guys. But Steve, I was with Steve, and I was just a drifter. And Steve's like, yeah, I'm going down. We're gonna drive some vans up to Seattle for this music festival, and like I think it was right after, right at the time during the riots. I think Rodney King possibly.
I thought about going to LA for that, just to check it out.
Yeah, so we were going. They were putting on like a fundraiser. It was like a protest in the park and the whole deal. And Pearl Jam was going to play right when Pearl Jam started. And so I get down there to the vans, you know, and I just met Richard, you know, like, oh yeah, you met you from Hood and everything. So those guys they have an envelope going around to collect money from everybody because they don't have any money, you know, it's like gas money. We're all going on a road trip. And he gets to me and I reach in my pocket. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll put some money in. I pull out my pocket. I have $2.40 in my pocket to my name.
Right.
Well, oh, here. And I grab these rabbit ears.
Right.
I hand it to Richard and he's all, yeah, you just keep your $2. You might need it.
But
like,
the point is, you were all in. You went all in, right? Everyone else, they gave like 10, 20% of their net worth. You gave 100% of your net worth.
We had the funnest time, like going up there, and then the event was canceled. So I said, I know a guy. So we called
And this is after Roadkill. Like, you had already like done things in your career, and like, so maybe you should have had people would think anyway that you'd have more than $2.40 in your pocket
you would
at that
think.
point in time.
You would think.
Go ahead, though. Go continue.
But I didn't. That's how snowboarding was back then.
Yeah.
So I go, let's call Rankwit, and he's got a vert ramp at his place, and we'll just throw the party there. And Rankwit was like, yeah, no problem. So Rankwit had the party at his place, and it was like...
We'll go trash Rankwit's, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah,
it was
we'll,
also
well, I
going
had
on in
no
the back
problem,
of your head.
like, it'll be fine. A couple guys coming up Rankwit and skate and everything. It ended
Dave
up
X a
being
bitch, right?
the whole entire music festival, like Seaweed played, you know, like all kinds of bands, and people were skating, and then MTV was there doing a thing on Vedder, you know, so they went to the vert ramp, and Vedder hung out, and he was playing music with, like, just sitting on the car, and, like, you know, with everybody. It was just totally chill. Like, Wooly and Vedder were singing a duet, and it was just really roots. This is before they got really, really big.
Yeah, it's funny how money spoils a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's
And,
maybe a different subject, though. Keep going. We're talking subject.
And it was on the way back. They're like, we got to figure out a place to stay. I'm like, head towards Chico. I used to live there. I know a bunch of people there. We went to Chico. We crashed at our friend's house. It was at Neil's house. Remember Neil? Neil and John Bayaki used to hang out.
Neil, what was Neil's last name?
Neil.
It wasn't Neil Gross, was it?
No.
No, Neil.
Neil. It'll come to you in a minute.
Rankin.
Neil Rankin.
Neil Rankin. Yeah.
Yeah, Rankin lived there with his sister, and it was an awesome place. And those guys went out, and half of them got laid, and they all had the best time, and so on. So I was locked in with the Volcom guys at that point. They're like, Seoane.
This is the guy who hooks it up for us, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and then Terrier and I kind of talked, and we were talking like Wooly, and we sat down with Wooly, and like, we want to make this film, and Wooly was like, okay, yes, he's the the voice of reason and devil's advocate, and he broke it all down. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So Volcom kicked up the money for it and everything, and it just, Did
you have to buy cameras at like everything from soup to nuts, or did you have the camera gear and they had to buy film and process it, or?
I might have. I already had a 16mm camera, or it might even. By that time, I think I bought a camera. I'm trying to think when that movie My Way came. No, this was before My Way.
Okay.
So I had bought like an Arri S and everything, like a used one from somebody. So I already had a I might have bought one from Jerry and Artie, and they were cool with what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it started. And then traveling with Terry. Terry is like one of my closest friends, and I don't know why, but we just like whenever I see him, it's not like, oh, how you been? It's just right where we left off. We just go right into the.
So when was the last time you saw him? Just from
when
right
did
now?
I see him last? I need to hang out with him more, and he's got it easy, and he travels a lot more. But for me, it's hard between work and then kids. I don't want to be gone all the time.
Sure.
And,
and it's not your fun, really. It's kind of like trying to accomplish something instead of like, hey, I'm going to go on another vacation and another one.
I'm going to go on this trip with my buddy Terrier, and we're just gonna cruise. So it was that trip that like we spent a lot of time together, and like he's like a brother, like a good brother. He's like.
How old was he at that point?
Well,
was that like the wooden sword that he was riding back then? That was the board that people like collect the shit out of that thing now.
Yeah, that thing's worth some stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was like, because I met him when he was 15 in Japan, and it was like, oh, everyone's like, oh yeah, Terrier. And Terrier's thing was like, whatever Craig does, Terrier does. He just emulates whatever Craig does, same style.
Yeah.
But better.
Yeah. But eventually he kind of like surpassed Craig as far as the technical merit and the amplitude and all of that, right?
Yeah.
He took the game to a new level maybe when he was like 17 or 18 or something like that. As far as that goes, I mean, obviously to get a pro model at Burton, you really had to be kind of established at that point.
Yeah, he's getting superhero status, and he's probably one of the most competitive people I know. Anything and everything.
Norwegians in general, maybe.
I don't know, because he we grew up in similar situations, like, kind of out in the woods a little bit.
Yeah.
So, like we were like technically we're both like not like farm kids or like Okies.
You
So
know
maybe that's
how
why-
to run a wheel line.
Yeah. So that's probably why like we got along so well, and it
So
was
let's
good.
hear like a story about the making of that no one. I'd like to premiere a new story about the making of Subjekt, because I think that a lot of people hold that film close to their heart. There's probably people who have it memorized probably better than you, because you probably make that and you looked at those clips so many times that you were like, once you edit it, you watch it once or twice, and you're like, maybe a year later you'll watch it again. I don't know. I'm sure you're not like waking up at like Monday and being like, okay, I gotta watch Subjekt again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. That I was pretty driven just because of the caliber with like working with Volcom and then working with Terry. I was pretty motivated. There wasn't any real like, but it was hard at times, because especially like, oh, let's do some interviews or something, and Terry just would like, no, dude, why do we have to talk about that? That's dumb. It's stupid. We're not gonna, no.
So he was
And
opinionated.
with the camera in front of him, he's like, no, dude, no. Turn the camera off, and he's like, yeah, so anyway, I was coming down the road, and he's like, God damn it, Terry. That would have been perfect. He's like, no, dude. I think because maybe, like, his English was great, but maybe he just felt, maybe he's self-conscious, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's just like, because now you can turn the camera on him, he'll fucking lay it down for you.
Yeah.
Tell it how it really is.
I think he learned to take the filter off somewhere along the way between then and now.
Yeah, he'll tell you about the IOC.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have my own opinions on that,
Yeah.
but the corruption is real. I know that too.
But a story, I'm just trying to, it'll come to me. Like,
What was the highlight? I'll frame it a different way. What was like to you? What was the highlight, the apex of making that? What was like the point where you're like, damn it, I can't believe that just happened, and I'm sitting here filming it.
that was like in Jackson. When we were out in Jackson, we'd take snowmobiles out to Gooch Zone, and because everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna hit that rock right there. And Terry's like, I'm gonna hit that rock there, and I'll come around, and then I'll 360 that, and then I'll hit that log there. Like, all right.
So he was
Just go wherever
stringing
you want,
together
I'm gonna
lines.
film it.
He was the first guy stringing together like a freestyle line, kind of in the
He was
backcountry.
linking stuff together,
Yeah,
and that would happen and be like, wow, that was spectacular.
right. And the other riders were probably in awe. Maybe I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I would have been in awe. I know that.
Yeah, then they started like, trying to follow his lines, and but Terry can like stomp it down, and he can pretty much do anything. And that happened in New Zealand as well. When we were in New Zealand, Terry would do like these big fat lines, like triple lines, like brr, 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 brr. And that's how he became the Sprocking Cat. That was like,
Yeah.
they came from Volcom. They called him the Sprocking Cat.
Yeah.
So, but he also, like at that time, he's also going through a lot of like leg pain. I think because he grew up, so he just sprouted while he was snowboarding, so he had like really bad, like weird shin splints, something to do with his shins and the whole area in his lower legs, and so he had to take just time off, like, and just relax. So I know he battled with that a bunch. That's probably why he's so healthy now, because he did so much yoga and stretching and takes
Right.
care of himself
He was
now.
almost like forced to look after his health in a way that most people take for granted when they're doing that stuff.
Yeah, and he's probably stronger than he's ever been now. So.
Have you ridden with him lately? Like snowboarding?
I haven't ridden with him. Like, trying to think the last time I rode with him at Baker. It was a while ago, but I remember I was just like, it's happened 2 years in a row. Riding with him, and he'd be like, "Follow me, follow me," and I was like, I just laugh. I'd be like, "Follow Terry, right?" And he'd just go down something. I just like, dry hump myself down it, And then the next year after that, he's like, "Oh, dude, here, I got the line. Follow me." And I'm just like, "I'm not following you."
Not anymore. So wait, what year did you stop following Terry?
That's a good question. But it wasn't, yeah. Even now, it takes a while to get just back on the horse, and you just can't, look at when I go up to Baldface, I'd look at these guys doing these lines and be like, no, that's too big for me. I'm not going off of that. But the medium size, the small to medium size.
I'm gonna have to shovel some manure next week.
Yeah. So, but God, it's just stories that stand out. It's really hard. You know, like the when we edited at Richard's house. All the offline editing, assembling everything together, and you know, it took a while because he's a perfectionist, and then we were just offlining. And then when it came to online, we put it all together, and we had spent so much time looking at all the shots, and we're like, well, I don't know, I kind of like it. It's, you know, we walked away from it after editing it, and we were like, I don't know, maybe people will like it. I'm not sure.
So you were unsure of yourself before it became like one of the most influential movies.
We were all kind of unsure of it, and then we had the premiere, and people were like, "Yeah, that's cool, man." It was very like, it wasn't like, that's mind blower.
Like cheering, crazy.
Yeah, and it wasn't until like a year later when it really started to really catch on. People were just like really into it, and
they had to watch it a few dozen times to even understand what was going on, almost.
Maybe, and there's no real storyline to it. It's just Terrier being Terrier. And so I think the music, one thing that was really cool while we were editing it, you know, we opened up with that Primus song, and it was just like, oh, this would be a good out, and then we were like, wait a minute, what? There's no rules here, like, why can't we just continue the song all the way through? Because the song, it just really picks up in the middle, and that's when it starts getting really good. So that's why we carried it all the way through the intro, all the way into like a couple other segments right into it, and then it was like, gung, gung, and it stopped, and then it was like a picture of the cat.
Yeah. So you made a few snowboard-specific movies after that, but then you started branching out beyond snowboarding. How did you start reaching beyond snowboarding? What made you decide to kind of work not only in snowboarding but out? That was a transition, right?
Yeah, I felt like I was very, very limited to like what I can do in the snowboard industry, just because people weren't putting out big money. You know, it wasn't until Brain Farm came out and Travis and Kurt Morgan, you know, that they were able to get money to do this like big deal. But before that, there was really nothing, and I was like, you know what, I really want to just get into like working on commercials and like a real like big production. And so it took me a while to get out of the snowboard industry, and then I started working on kind of commercials, and then I worked on like a TV show to get all my union hours and become a union camera operator. And now I look back, I'm a union camera operator, and I show up at these jobs, you know, I'm in charge of just, you know, you got to frame stuff, you know, there's like, you got to frame it right, but it's very stale, because I'm not the director of photography, and so I needed to get back. I had a whole, I just hit the wall like maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, like I'm just wasting my time, I need to get back to what I do.
Like this year, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, it's like I need to be creative again.
Okay, interesting.
So I've been doing like, I'll show you one little clip.
Oh, I get to see it. You don't. Let's check out this clip.
I'll show you one little clip of what I want to be doing, and this is taking everything I know about filmmaking. I'm 50 years old now. I've been doing it since I was like 25 or so, and that'd be 25 years, right? Yeah. And so now it's all about putting yourself at the right place at the right time, framing, light, everything. So this is what I want to be doing right here.
Okay, let's check this out.
That's with no lights, no nothing. But this is what I want to be doing.
I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this clip.
It's just Sebastian, my 4-year-old, jumping on a trampoline.
Okay, that makes sense, totally.
So it's you got to put your... It's very abstract, and I think it's key, like...
I would call it Art Nouveau, but you know.
Art Nouveau. I'm just kidding. But to put yourself in the right place, like we can look at this right here. Like, what can we, you know, everybody's seen video of like a creek, water coming down a creek, but how can you just like tweak it?
Right.
Naturally, without lights and without like the craziness. And it would take me a little bit to walk around and put myself in the right position and get something that's totally like on.
So
like, I've never seen that before.
It's not just about capturing the action. It's about trying to convey emotion and action maybe together, right?
And I think it's like the only person that I would want to do that, what I just showed you, and take a whole version and doing like an hour-long version of that, maybe a half hour, I don't know, is with somebody like Jamie Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would never, if I did a film with Jamie Lynn, I would never want to have him sit down interview with Jamie Lynn. I would never have him, well, I think I dropped that and followed. So he's not like that. It's not his deal. But other people will talk about Jamie Lynn, and he just like show Jamie Lynn. So I would want to shoot a whole entire film with Jamie Lynn with just an iPhone 10 or a Samsung, and just.
I know, it's amazing what the phones do now.
Just use that, because you can't be like set something up and because Jamie's already moved on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I asked him, because his thing is like 0 fucks given. That's his thing.
And truly, he embodies and lives that.
He lives that. That's his. What do you call it? That's his.
Mantra.
Mantra. Yeah.
Mantra.
So that's kind of his mantra. And I texted him. I'm like, "Are you ready to make the film 0 fucks given?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Ooh, it sounds like a.
And I said, okay, let's like, I don't want to talk about it on text and phone. I go, let's go skate, because he was supposed to come down like the week before, and he was rolling through town. He was going to come by and skate, because we were just going to skate. I still skate. So.
You ever seen? This is totally a sideline. You ever seen the movie It's like The Mystery of Picasso or something like that?
Mm-mm.
It's like basically time lapse of him painting all these different paintings. It was one of the most inspirational movies I've ever seen to this day. It's just time lapse of him creating. And Jamie seems like this creator that if you could capture that creativity somehow in a way that's like not him explaining his creativity, but him being himself, you know, and not being this. He's like he's a snowboarder that was epic, right? Starting in Roadkill. That's really where he kind of like was just going big, doing the big frontside 360s, whatever, but that set him apart. But it was really his artwork that kind of, in conjunction with going huge and stomping landings, you know. I used to refer to him in the early Mac Dog days as the hucker who landed, you know, because he just like would huck like in a different way than everyone, and then he started landing those tricks, and then all of a sudden he was better than everyone. Almost.
Yeah, he was strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Jamie's very soft-spoken. He won't talk about the day of snowboarding.
Yeah, yeah, the interview, so you're going to have to really find a good interviewer to do those, and honestly, you don't even want that, because that actually almost betrays his creativity.
It's not Jamie, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the only thing I'd want to do in snowboarding right now. Is
okay, so what if someone came up to you and was like, look, Shaun White has just done the, you know, theoretically impossible. Some people still hate him. People have kind of started coming around because they respect that focus and determination and drive. We want you to make a Shaun White movie and capture that. Would you do that if someone wrote a big enough check?
There would have to be. I would have an interest in it. There would have to be. If I had to deal with all of his agency people and like, oh, you can't show that and you can't do that, I don't think I'd have an interest in it.
Right.
And my biggest thing is like, it would probably be a good moneymaker, but now it's like, I don't need a lot of money to live. I'd rather just be happy and be creative than try to make a ton of money. And a lot of people, like, they get into it and they just like, well, we can make this much money. And I need, my overhead is pretty low, and I don't want a fancy boat and all that. And I just want to buy tools and tractors and the basics. That's all I need.
Not everyone needs a tractor. I hate to break it to you.
Well, I need an excavator. That's what I need.
Okay.
Just, you know, for around
Okay,
the
so let's
house.
talk about your life by design. Let's talk about what you do now, your family, and where you live and how you live. Right? Tell me about your life.
I feel like I'm pretty fortunate that Jessica, my wife, we used to always joke around, be like, we just want a simple place with some acreage and a lake and a river through it, no big deal.
No big whoop, right?
Yeah, and so we have that now, but we have the the dumbed down version of it. We have a creek that runs all year round. We have a vernal pool, which is a seasonal pond. So right now it just dried up. It's we're in July, almost 1st of July.
Yeah.
And so we have that, and it's just a joke. And we admire it and we appreciate it. And when I'm at home, all I do is like work on the house and the land, and it's like the best feeling ever, because when you build something, it's like that's ours forever. Like nobody can ever take it away.
And you do stuff like you're a beekeeper. We were just talking about that earlier. How like you keep bees.
Yeah, we have bees and chickens.
Hobby farming.
Yeah, simple farming, and we have the eggs because our kids, you know, the boys they just eat a ton of eggs, and it's nice to kind of know where your food comes from. And that's another thing too, is where we live in Sonoma County. There's a lot of really good access to farms and good food, and so that's really important to us. and I don't have to commute. I have to go to LA quite a bit and drive down there, and that's a little bit soul sucking, but that just drives me into like I need to be doing my own thing again.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, you've been out of the game of really, I mean, the biggest thing, I think that you have the creativity, you know, the editing and all this, but really there's this whole business aspect to making a movie. And how do you kind of navigate that creativity and the business into, you know?
Well, the business aspect of it, I'm horrible because I'm just like, I'll do whatever it takes to get it made, whether I'm getting paid or not. If you have a vision, and you're able to fall through, because there's a lot of times where you go through flat spots where there's no ideas and you're like, well, I'm done, this sucks, and then time goes on and you come up with an idea that comes from just whatever, out of nowhere, and then you wake up the next morning, it's still in your head, and you're like, I need to make that happen. So I just noticed that the older I get, and this will be very inspirational for young kids who want to get into filmmaking or photography or anything that they're using their brain, do it now while you're young, because when you get older, it's a lot harder to come up with the ideas, and you take less risks.
You're like asking kids to put you out to pasture right now.
I won't do something if I'm not really into it, and that's what some of the other snowboard films, like Terry's second film, like the Factor.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't as strong, and like was it 8 tracks? I did Roadkill 8 tracks. Was there one more? RPM.
RPM, yep.
Those weren't as I was doing those and putting them out, but my heart and soul wasn't into it, and it was just like, God, man.
You're kind of jumping through the hoops.
Yeah, because that's what everybody else did with MacDog and FLF and standards. So I figured that's what you do, and I said, like, that's why I got into the commercial filmmaking, because I just wanted to try something different. I felt like I was being repetitive and just watering things down, and I just needed to not just stop while I was ahead.
Yeah, and you know, it's like it got to the point where it was like really just about the tricks the athletes were doing and less about kind of the adventure, the story of what happened. Really, it just got down to, it's like, what trick did you capture? What did you get today?
Yeah, it was not Colorado to Baker. It was like, you know, it turned into like, okay, from Jamie to
opening part, closing part, right?
Ikikaka, you know, jumping off a super booter, and I wasn't really into that.
Yeah. And so do you think that if you do another project, or this Jamie project we just talked about, it sounds like it'll be more, there'll be a story involved, there'll be something of substance there beyond the tricks that Jamie does? Because I'm guessing that there's other athletes out there who could make, in terms of just the riding, more compelling tricks happen.
It'll definitely be the snowboarding portion of it will just be a small percentage of it. It's more just Jamie as a human being, and how he can just, like, more people could maybe, if he can influence other people to be more like Jamie, even though there's only one Jamie. But I just think it's so creative, and it's just a huge palette to work with.
Yeah, he's fairly multi-dimensional.
Yeah, and you know, I've just been hanging with him just a little bit over the last like couple years, and I was just like, and his hands. If you get a close up of his hands. I always, like, you know, I work, like, look at my hands. My hands are pretty tattered and torn up, and his hands.
Band-aids and scars and calluses and
some crummy tattoos on there. But, like, Jamie is like, he shows up, I'm all, let me see him. And he holds them out, and I'm like, oh, dang it. Like, he showed up off the plane like a couple years ago, and his hands were just black. And I go, Jamie, what happened there? And he's like, yeah, I was drawing on the plane, and my pen kind of blew up. He had like black ink all over his pants and shirt and hands, and I'm like, really? And they just that's how about the guy sitting next to you? What was he thinking, you know? And that's just Jamie. He just
but he probably wasn't aware that there was someone sitting next to him or something.
He's just probably like,
wiping it all over himself. Didn't matter, right?
Yeah, and it's not like he's trying to have this appearance or look. It's just the way he is, and you know, like he is. Because I'd be like, well, where's Jamie? You know, like, I thought he's coming with us. They're like, yeah, he'll show up. He'll be here. And then just like a few minutes before it's time to get in the bus and go, he just like flies in, and like he's just there. He just rolls by. It's like 2 minutes to go before the bus, and I look on the outside window of the airport. He's skating by. He's got like a cigarette hanging out, and he just looks in at us, and we're like, oh, there's Jamie.
Made it.
Made it, no problem. Not even stressed. He just casually walks in. Hey, guys.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Beav here. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please consider donating at patreon.com/The Snowboard Project. You too can help us create an independent voice in snowboard media. We're not sponsored by anyone except you. Patreon.com/The Snowboard Project.
It seems like you've worked and helped define like two of the most important careers in snowboarding. So for kids who are like, don't have this, they have this idea that they're going to be the next Jamie Lynn or the next Terrier. What do you have to say to those kids?
You mean as far as being a rider?
As far as just having a longevity in their career.
Yeah, I think they just have to be like passionate about it, and if they have a gut feeling about something, they don't want to do it, but their company wants them to do it that way, and they start doing that way, then it just takes all the fun away. And I think Terry has created his own path, and he does what he wants to do. And I think that because I used to trip out like Kevin Jones, I was like, wow, Kevin Jones is like, he's in it for life, he is so strong, and then he's just like, boop, I'm done. Travis White Rice. Sorry. So Travis, like up at Danny's thing, like Travis just shows up, with his crew and everything, and he's just hitting the big jumps, and he's like an older generation from all the guys who are there. And I was just looking at Travis, thinking like, Travis is one of the most underrated snowboarders out there. Still, and I think that he just does it. He's passionate about it. He loves riding. He's stronger than ever. I'm hope he never dies in an avalanche. He's had some really close calls, and he's not trying to be crazy, but he just feels confident about it, and he's still snowboarding like a champ. Yeah. And I think it's like that. You create your own path, and you do what you enjoy doing. Like guys like Jim Zellers. Yeah. These guys and Tom Burt, they still snowboard all the time. They're like, it's like, it just snowed 4 feet. We're gonna let it settle, and we're gonna hike into so and so, and they snowboard every single day. It's mind blowing. I wish I could do that. I'm the opposite. I have too many things I want to try and do and learn, and so the snowboarding is just I actually, back when I was a snowboarder and I was sitting on the chairlift, I felt like I was just wasting my time I was sitting down half the time on this chairlift, I fell asleep in the back of a helicopter in Juneau. It was a half-hour flight to Devil's Paw. I was with the North Face shoot, and it was with Zellers, that I'm chained up. But I fell asleep in the back seat in the helicopter in an A-Star, and I was like, all right, it's time to do something else. Took a little nap. That's crazy. Those views are so spectacular. Yeah. I can't even. But I had been up there for like a week, and I was like, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about. I try to have some kind of learning aspect to this. So let's talk a little bit about mistakes you've made and learned from. Things that you would never ever do again.
The biggest mistakes I learned from, I think I would own all the footage I have, like the and the rights to it a little bit more, like Volcom owns, Terrier's movie, and that's fine, but in retrospect, when I look back now, if I had a full library of everything that I did and I owned and it was all mine, I would probably be putting it out there more, doing different versions and having a little bit more material to work with. Like even the movie with Sean, the Sean White album, like when he made his Olympics and all that, because this is before the Olympics, and everyone's like, oh, you got to do the movie and have it just out there, you'll make a bunch of money. And I was like, you know what, it's just so much. I don't, I own all that footage, but like the music rights and everything, I have to go through contracts, lawyers. I'm like, it's just too much work for me, and it's already been done. It's just like I don't want to do it. But I wish I owned. Well, you can't own the music rights to it, but I wish I did a little bit better negotiating. As far as I wish I was always a little bit more organized going into the footage, and because it's always like, oh yeah, it starts off really organized and then it's just chaotic, and at the end you're stuck with this gigantic pile of rubble that you got to sort the little stones from the big stones.
Right.
Shift through the sand.
Yeah. Okay, so basically just it's almost like two opposite ends of the spectrum, being a creator and being a business person. One is analytical and one is anti-analytical almost, right? And so how do you strike that balance?
Well, nowadays, that balance is my wife, Jessica, because she's really good at numbers, and I'm just like, I don't know. it's always like, well, what credit card you put it on? I'm like, I don't know, just the one of them. It's just like, it's
Yeah.
just like, I'm so bad. Like when I had to do my own accounting and stuff in the day, and I didn't even have a lot to really account for. I was just like late fee, bills. I just didn't care about the numbers, and I still don't care about the numbers. I just want to be creative.
Right.
That's probably
so-
why I don't live in some super. That's why I don't make a ton of money. But I'd rather make less money and be happy in the long run.
Do you think it's better to try to narrow your path or to have as broad a path as you can? Because it's like you want to be a creator. That's one aspect of it. But there's the distribution, there's the sponsorship sales, there's the, there's all sorts of different aspects of making a movie.
I mean, to be honest now, like I don't even know how you even, because there's no DVD, there's no, you put it on iTunes, it gets out there, and then everybody copies it. I'll send you a link, I'll send you a copy or whatever. So I don't even know how people make money. You need to get it all up
Netflix special.
front. Yeah.
Amazon or Netflix, basically, they're throwing money around, or taking it to a different level, maybe like, working for television, and that if you can be a producer and control the creativity behind it,
Yeah.
maybe you can, I don't know.
I honestly, I'm cursed with the DIY. Is probably my biggest weakness that I have. If I had a producer that I trusted and would come in and do all the work, I would love to, like, here, just take half the money, just whatever, just here's what I want to do next, just get me there. I think maybe it would be a little bit different, but I'm completely cursed with DIY, with do it yourself. And I try to do everything myself, and so I end up doing like 5 things myself that are all watered down, instead of just doing the one thing that I want to do, the most, which is being creative and concept and
Right.
set up for getting the shot. So
So, do you have any regrets from snowboarding as far as like your career or the films you made or anything like that?
that's a good question. I look back at everything that I've done, and I compare it to a lot of things that people have done that I got to travel around the world. I still get to.
Check.
And just at somebody else's expense, and be around with like really solid human beings that are passionate about what they're doing, who are really,
You're talking about Hollywood, I take it.
And I look back at it and I'm just like, because I'd say the biggest thing is that I got to travel the world. I got to be in Nepal and stand in places that nobody's ever stepped foot in. I got to be in Greenland and be in places that nobody's ever stepped foot before, because there's no ever any reason to be there. And so I feel pretty fortunate to get the road miles logged in and go to exotic places, and people are cool. Like once you with all the aspects, like, oh, Americans, this is like a lot of times when Americans are like, oh, Americans or whatever, and then once you just one-on-one with somebody who's anti-American, it's like, you're cool, like you're an American but you're cool.
Yeah, everyone else sucks, but you're okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten that a lot, actually.
Yeah, so it's just, there's that. It's just like breaking down all the walls, and you're just, you guys are in the same hut or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but as far as like, regrets, I can't think of anything, My only regret is maybe if I owned all my own footage, but I'm always just like, I don't have rear view mirrors on my my frame. I never look back. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't, like, if I did make a mistake, it's like, God damn it, okay, and then go into the next one and I'm better for it. I don't have any like, poor me at all. I've never poor me'd it, I've never been like, well, so-and-so. My only thing is I wish I was, like you said, better at business so I can raise money, because I wanted to put a cable cam through a half pipe for the longest time, and I could never raise the money for it and get the whole deal. And now it's like you see it everywhere, and you're like,
Right. Right.
so now I just want to shoot on an iPhone. And it's not because of being lazy, just because of experience that I know you miss out on so much of the home cooking.
It's like there's like 2 different kind of approaches. Like one is like, okay, the creativity is the thing that matters, and the other aspect would be like people want to be blown away by technology.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I look at Brain Farm, it good cinematography and everything else, but they're really applying like the maximum technology to that endeavor. Whereas like an iPhone, it's like, because you're using this ghetto thing that's really portable and whatever, you're forced to really dig deep in your creativity and do something, because it's not going to be the highest quality.
I like a challenge.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like a bigger challenge. Maybe like the world's first iPhone snowboard movie.
Yeah, maybe. Kurt Morgan from Brain Farm, I'd always heard of him, and it's like, he's like this hothead, and he's crazy and everything. And then I was like, I did this job with him, with Titleist Golf, and he was involved with it. And I was like, oh yeah, because I've never met Kurt. I might have met him a long time ago in Jackson before he was camera guy, and I was like, Kurt is awesome. Like he's a smart ass. He gives you shit once you break the bread, and he's calling me an old man, and I was like giving him shit, and it was like, he's like, well, if you want to work with me again, I was like, you know what, unless you think I'm a total asshole like everybody else, I'm like, you know what, Kurt, like, I didn't know what to think of you when I first met, because I heard so many stories about you, and when I met you, I think you're great, I get you, like, I totally understand, and you're a good hustler, and you can make things happen. I go, you're great. I'd totally work with you anytime. Yeah. And we did a commercial job just not too long ago for the X Games, and he was just like, he was just brutal on his crew and everything.
Oh, yelling just at him, hot-heading him.
We worked 18-hour days, on this Jeep commercial, and he's like, this is like a full-on commercial shoot. He's like, we just got the flow going. He's like, anybody wants to take lunch? Take lunch. I'm working. I'm like, well, I'm going to work too because I have to hold the camera for him. I guess we're working. And it was like, at the end of the day, he's like, sorry if I was kind of being an asshole. And I'm like, Kurt, I thought you were kind of favoring me. You were kind of mean to everybody else, but you're being a little bit nicer to me. So I thought I was being favored. But Kurt's awesome. But to long story short, once I got to know him, gone on a few trips with him, the question, he looked at me, he's like, have you ever seen The Art of Flight? And I looked at him and I said, Kurt, I watched the movie trailer for that film. And I was like, hands down, this is the best snowboard film ever made. And I left it at that, and I've never seen the film. To this day, I've never even seen The Art of Film. The Art of Flight.
You don't even know the name, actually.
The art thing, flight. No, but I was just like, it's mind-blowing. It was such a great opportunity. I think maybe there's a part of me that was like Dogger, it was like, God damn it. Because I wanted to do all that. I wouldn't have the gimbal and the whole deal, but I didn't have access to it. And that's the part where I'm not a business-savvy guy. I just want to be creative. But you can't make your own Cineflex.
But I mean, the drones now compared to it's crazy how you had to rent a Cineflex and then rent the heli time for the Cineflex, and you're talking about $10,000 a day or something for the Cineflex, and then $4,000 an hour, $3,000 an hour for the helicopter, and now $800 drone will make 80-90% of that quality with
well, now all the guys, like what they're doing now, all the guys that do the drone racing, they have those guys coming out on the hill with them, and they can take their drones and they can get them just doing 360s around their head as they're going off cliffs and dropping stuff, because those guys are so precise. They're smaller cameras, but they're doing stuff that nobody's ever seen, and that's
the next level.
I personally think that's pretty incredible. The guys, they want to do freestyle with their little drones and stuff, and they're just they have to tell those guys when you come around, you don't have to do a flip with your drone.
You have to direct them. Otherwise, it's going to be crazy flying.
Yeah, because they're they can just chase down chutes and stuff like that with them being in the car in the parking lot.
So I bet we're going to see a lot more of that even this year.
Yeah, that's what's happening right now in the whole in real in the front lines of real snowboarding.
Cool. So any parting advice for people out there listening to you? You don't go on tape very often, so
yeah.
But I think people can learn from you. I'm learning. I've learned a lot actually sitting here talking to you.
I think just go with your gut feeling, go with your heart. Just if you don't want to do it, just be an asshole and don't do it. And just nobody's gonna be knocking at your door to make it happen. You gotta create your own job. And I think I worked since I was 8 years old, so I've always got my own job and created my own job and carried my own weight if I wanted stuff. So you just got to make it happen for yourself. And the other thing is people are like, oh, that sucks if you get you post something that you think is spectacular and people are assholes about it, whatever. Fuck them. That they're not even doing anything. You're the one that's out there trying. And
all they're doing is coming up with witty breakdowns of you.
Do something. Just do it. Even if it sucks and it fails, the next one's going to be better if you really want it to happen. So just go out there and make mistakes. That's the biggest thing I can give to people. Because there's people who make mistakes and tail between the legs and whine about it, and there's people that make mistakes and be like, okay, this time we're gonna, and it carries from there. Those are the people who are gonna succeed.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Dave Seoane. I appreciate your time. That was pretty epic. You'll have to read my book, Fail Your Way to the Top.
You got a book?
I'm working on it.
Nice.
Don't worry, it's not out yet. Neither is this podcast.
Okay.
On behalf of Mark Sullivan and the Beeve, thanks for listening to the Snowboard Project. Remember, ride fast, take chances, dream big, and take action. And for God's sake, don't be a pussy. Don't forget to support advertising-free snowboarding media at patreon.com. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project. The Snowboard Project.